sometimes shit happens, someone has to deal with it, and who are you gonna call?
It's weird to me that at some point, this movie was considered a letdown. Coming out after 4 years after the first movie, there was a lot of hype around this film. I remember my mom taking me to see it at the tender age of 10, and we nearly missed the start. But looking at it today, after watching Ghostbusters 2016 and Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ghostbusters 2, with all its fault, got a bad rap back then. It's funny to look back on it, but there was a point in time where I actually preferred number 2 to number 1. I'm Meffistoe, like, share, and subscribe because this is my review of the movie Ghostbusters 2.
We're the best, we're the beautiful, we're the only Ghostbusters.
Getting an old crew to show up after a hit is one thing. Getting Bill Murray to do what you tell him to do is another. The production of the second Ghostbusters movie was delayed partially and probably mostly because Murray didn't want to be typecast and be back in that role that was so popular. He just couldn't follow it. Besides, on television, there was already an animated show, The Real Ghostbusters, giving the fans a pound of Ghostbusters flesh. That went a little bit dark. Anyways, after many delays, the original cast got together with the original director and created another part of the franchise.
Do, re,
Egon!
The movie did okay at the box office, but many fans were disappointed. So the story starts off with introducing us to the red slime, as Dana Barrett rolls her baby carriage through it. Suddenly, the carriage has a life of its own as it rides down the street into the moving traffic, stopping dead in front of a bus. Meanwhile, we see Ray and Winston pull up to a job wearing full Ghostbusters gear, but we understand that they are there only to entertain kids and not really fight ghosts.
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap and that's why you went out of business.
Apparently, the Ghostbusters were dissolved after saving the city and there were no more ghosts to fight, so they went out of business. Peter Venkman took a gig as a host of a paranormal TV show, and that one's also failing.
You know, I'm a voter. Aren't you supposed to lie to me and kiss my butt?
Egon Spangler went back to work as a research psychologist. Dana turns to Egon as the most level-headed man in the group, and she wants him to come back to her place to check her boy and the carriage. Egon involves Ray, and by happenstance, Peter hears all about this encounter.
I can't. No. Nobody. I tell me can't. now? I can't. Now? Dana Barrett.
The trio arrives at Dana's apartment and quickly start with the examinations, although Peter wants to examine Dana rather than her son. After not finding anything, they go down to the street and they hit pay dirt.
There's something brewing under the street. I've got 118 on the PKE.
2.5 GeVs on the Geiger meter.
Well, what does that mean?
As the boys illegally dig into the pavement, they burst through a sewer that has a massive buildup of psychokinetic slime. But because they are there illegally, they are questioned by the cops and some city engineers and end up cutting the power to 4 city blocks. The boys stand trial and get defended by Louis Tully, that at this point converted from a CPA to a lawyer.
I think you guys are making a big mistake. I do mostly tax law and some probate stuff occasionally. I got my law degree in night school.
He can't really defend the boys, but on sentencing, the judge creates such a bad atmosphere that the slime erupts and 2 ghosts terrorize the courtroom. The judge has to dismiss the charges in order to Ghostbusters to spring into action, and they are back.
2 in the box.
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
As the guys go back into business, Peter tries to get back with Dana. Peter visits her at her job restoring old paintings for the museum and discovers not only her creepy boss, but a very creepy large painting of Vigo the Carpathian.
This is Prince Vigo, the ruler Carpathian Moldavia.
Bit of a sissy, isn't he?
At some point, we find out that Vigo is trapped in the painting, and he enlists Janos to help him find a baby boy that he can use to incarnate.
A child. A child. A child?
Dana suspects something is off with the painting, and the boys come out and test it. Egon discovers that the slime is indeed psychokinetic, responding not only to bad thoughts, but for good thoughts too, even to music.
You mean this stuff actually feeds on bad vibes?
Like a cop in a donut factory.
Ray follows up on the river of slime as he has seen it in the picture of Vigo. The boys follow up and check the sewers for the river of slime and stumble right into it, leading them straight into the museum.
It's all over the city, Pete.
Under it, actually.
Rivers of this stuff. Yes, and it's all flowing right to the museum.
Yeah, the museum.
Parallel to that, Dana gets attacked at her apartment and escapes to Peter's place, who obviously welcomes her at the mere chance of putting the moves on her. The two finally go out on a date, which allows Janos to kidnap Oscar, and the Ghostbusters need to find a way to defeat Vigo before he succeeds with his plan.
Viggy, you have been a bad monkey.
Murray, Aykroyd, Ramis, and Hudson all give top-notch performances as always. All of them slip quite nicely back into their characters, and it feels like a continuation of the first film. However, the problems that people mostly overlook is the comedy aspect. In the first Ghostbusters, it seems effortlessly, and in the sequel, it seems a bit forced somehow. Another thing is the villain. Where the real villain in the first film truly appears in the final act, in this movie, we already know who it is, and it is just a matter of our protagonists to catch on to it.
When you guys had me dangling like a worm on a hook 100 feet below First Avenue, that's the river of slime.
As for the supporting cast, there were a few changes that had to be done in order to facilitate the storyline. Dana's baby is not coming from Peter, but from someone else that puts an extra friction between their relationship. Janine, who was infatuated with Egon, suddenly goes out for Louis, which for the longtime franchise fans was a bit weird, and it was very much corrected in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I think motherhood's a very natural instinct. I like a child myself. Would you?
But the biggest change is the inclusion of Slimer as a force of good rather than evil. In the first film, Slimer was just a part of the first job that the guys went through. But because he was a fan favorite of the animated show, he was included in this movie and even has a minor part in helping Louis Tully to get where he needs to go at the end of the movie.
Oh, it's you. Okay, but I didn't know you had your license.
Regardless of its initial reception and the fact that the group hijacks and reanimates the Statue of Liberty, I can still highly recommend you watch this movie and enjoy it yourself. And if you haven't seen either of the Ghostbusters movies, do yourself a favor and watch them, if only to join in with the massive amounts of memes created over the years. Ghostbusters 2 is still entertaining after all these years, and if you put aside the fact that Ghostbusters 1 was a tough act to follow, Ghostbusters 2 is not a bad movie, and there's so much good stuff in it.
Kinda makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wonder what?
Whether she's naked under that toga. She's French. You know that.
I thank you for watching, and remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I'll see you on the next video.